Our number one goal is to make sure that we're structuring our business in those markets as times change to make sure that we're protecting our assets and investing at the appropriate levels.
Is John Deere really turning its back on American farmers? It might sound shocking, but recent moves by this agricultural giant have left many wondering if profits have completely taken priority over the people and communities that built the brand. With jobs shifting to Mexico, restrictive repair policies frustrating farmers, and even big names like Donald Trump and Elizabeth Warren stepping into the controversy, it seems John Deere is at the center of a storm unlike anything we've seen before. What does this mean for American agriculture? And could it signal the start of a new era where corporations control not only our jobs, but the very tools our farmers rely on? Let's dive into the story, shaking the agricultural world to its roots. John Deere's shift to Mexico. John Deere's recent decision to transfer significant manufacturing operations from the United States to Mexico has left farmers, workers, and communities feeling blindsided and betrayed. Previously regarded as an icon of American agriculture, John Deere has long been tied to the heart of American farming, but this shift has sparked intense backlash, igniting debates over job security, community stability, and the very future of American manufacturing. As of now, key production lines for compact track loaders and skid steers are set to move to Ramos Arizpe, Mexico. If the transition proceeds as planned, more shifts are scheduled for 2026 when additional operations may be relocated. The implications of this move have been massive. In Iowa and Illinois alone, two states deeply associated with John Deere's legacy, more than 2,100 jobs have already been cut, affecting families and local economies that have relied on these stable positions for decades. Farmers and workers are now questioning the company's commitment to American manufacturing, sparking public outrage and intensifying the scrutiny on corporate practices. For many, John Deere's decision feels like a slap in the face to the American workforce, a step that puts profits before the people and communities that built the company. The economic necessity argument. When questioned, John Deere insists the move is a response to economic pressures, citing a need to reduce labor costs. And indeed, there is a drastic difference in wages between the United States and Mexico. A US-based production manager makes about $56 an hour, while their Mexican counterpart earns a mere fraction of that. According to Deere's executives, these relocations are the only way to stay competitive and maintain their bottom line in a challenging economic climate. However, as some point out, John Deere reported record profits of over $10 billion last year, an impressive 42% increase from the previous year. For many, this raises a critical question. If the company is doing so well financially, why cut jobs and relocate to Mexico at all? Some economic analysts suggest that Deere's reasoning might be less about genuine necessity and more about profit maximization, prioritizing financial gains over loyalty to their workforce and community. By shifting production to Mexico, John Deere stands to cut manufacturing costs significantly, especially when factoring in lower wages, less stringent labor laws, and reduced operational expenses. Critics argue that while this move benefits corporate shareholders, it has dire consequences for American workers and the communities that depend on them. Donald Trump and the threat of tariffs. The controversy surrounding John Deere's shift to Mexico has caught the attention of political heavyweights, particularly former President Donald Trump. Known for his America First stance, Trump has made it clear that he is prepared to take drastic measures if John Deere proceeds with these plans. He has threatened to impose a 200% tariff on all John Deere products manufactured in Mexico, a move that could send shockwaves through the agricultural industry and beyond. Just imagine the impact. A tractor that normally costs $100,000 could jump to a staggering $300,000, putting immense pressure on American farmers and potentially impacting John Deere's sales domestically. During a recent policy roundtable in Pennsylvania, Trump condemned John Deere's decision, accusing the company of abandoning American workers and undermining the U.S. economy. He argued that by relocating production to Mexico, John Deere is hurting American farmers, the very backbone of the nation's food supply. For Trump, this isn't just about John Deere. It's part of a larger battle against outsourcing and corporate practices that harm American industries. While critics of Trump's stance argue that such tariffs could have unintended negative effects on American farmers who rely on reasonably priced equipment, supporters of the tariffs see them as a necessary step to protect American jobs and deter other corporations from following Deere's lead. The company, however, remains firm, claiming that its decision is based on economic realities, not political pressures. While acknowledging acknowledging the potential impact of tariffs, John Deere has argued that the move is critical for maintaining a competitive edge in the global market. To appease critics, Deere emphasizes its continued commitment to U.S. manufacturing, pointing out that they still employ about 30,000 workers across 60 American facilities. Nonetheless, Trump's proposed tariffs have added a new level of uncertainty for the company, leaving both workers and farmers unsure of what the future holds. Farmers' frustration with Deere's repair restrictions. As if the relocation wasn't controversial enough, John Deere has also been making waves with its restrictive repair policies, drawing the ire of farmers who feel increasingly powerless over the equipment they rely on. In recent years, John Deere implemented software locks on its machinery, essentially preventing farmers from conducting their own repairs. This decision forces farmers to rely exclusively on authorized John Deere dealerships for maintenance, a requirement that has led to skyrocketing repair costs and frustrating delays. Many farmers have shared stories of losing valuable days of productivity while waiting for authorized technicians to arrive, particularly during critical planting and harvesting seasons. Critics argue that this move is yet another example of Deere's prioritization of profit over customer satisfaction and community well-being. John Deere's parts and services division is reportedly 3 to 6 times more profitable than their new equipment sales, leading some to believe that the repair restrictions are a calculated strategy to monopolize maintenance services. This monopoly on repairs has fueled the right to repair movement, with farmers pushing for legislation that would give them the ability to fix their own equipment without facing exorbitant fees or delays. In response, Deere has argued that the software locks are necessary to protect intellectual property and ensure that repairs meet certain standards. However, this explanation has done little to assuage the frustrations of farmers who feel they are being forced into a system that leaves them at the mercy of dealership pricing and availability. For farmers who have traditionally been able to fix their own equipment, these restrictions are not only inconvenient, but also deeply disempowering. As the debate over right to repair continues to gain traction, John Deere finds itself at the center of a heated discussion about corporate power, customer rights, and the future of farming in an increasingly digital age. The right to repair movement gains momentum. Frustration among the farming community has reached a boiling point. John Deere's restrictive repair policies, forcing farmers to rely on authorized dealers, have led to a nationwide backlash. Farmers who have long prided themselves on their self-sufficiency now find themselves forced to pay steep fees and wait through unnecessary delays for basic repairs. For many, it's not just about financial costs. It's about the erosion of a farming tradition where practical skills and independence are cornerstones of the profession. The right to repair movement has thus emerged as a powerful force, as farmers demand more control over their own machinery. The Right to Repair campaign is about ensuring that farmers have the tools, knowledge, and legal freedom to service their own equipment. Grassroots movements and advocacy groups have taken the issue to the state and federal level, pushing for laws that would require companies like John Deere to provide the necessary software and tools to perform their own repairs. Many farmers who feel cornered by John Deere's repair monopoly have taken matters into their own hands. Some have even begun hacking into the software of their tractors, determined to bypass the digital locks that prevent them from making adjustments or repairs. A notable example of this resistance took place at the DEF CON security conference, where a well-known hacker known as Sick Codes demonstrated how he could jailbreak John Deere tractors, giving farmers root access to their own equipment. This act of defiance underscored a growing sense of determination within the farming community to reclaim control of their machinery. Sick Codes' demonstration struck a chord with farmers across the country who saw it as a symbol of their fight for autonomy in a world that seems increasingly dominated by corporate interests. Lawmakers step in to defend farmers. The controversy surrounding John Deere's repair policies hasn't gone unnoticed by lawmakers. In response to the growing demands of the right to repair movement, several states have started enacting laws aimed at dismantling the monopolistic control of companies like John Deere over repairs. Colorado, for instance, has become a trailblazer, passing legislation that requires agricultural equipment manufacturers to provide farmers with the necessary tools, software, and parts for repairs. This landmark legislation has set a precedent, inspiring other states to consider similar laws that would give consumers greater control over their products. Prominent political figures have joined the fight, rallying behind farmers and calling out John Deere for what they perceive as unethical practices. Senator Elizabeth Warren, for instance, has publicly criticized John Deere, arguing that the company's policies infringe on farmers' rights and make it harder for them to run their businesses. Warren has also raised concerns that the company's restrictive repair policies might even violate the Clean Air Act by preventing necessary repairs on emission systems. Her statements have resonated deeply within rural communities, where the sense of disempowerment has been growing. For farmers, having lawmakers on their side provides some much-needed hope that change might be on the horizon. The increasing political pressure on companies like John Deere could be the key to forcing these corporations to reconsider their policies. However, powerful manufacturers are pushing back, arguing that the right to repair laws could compromise safety and emission standards. John Deere claims that allowing open access to repair tools could lead to modifications that impact the equipment's performance or environmental impact, but for farmers, these arguments feel like thinly veiled attempts to maintain control over a lucrative monopoly. How Deere's actions are reshaping rural communities. The fallout from John Deere's policies extends far beyond individual farmers. The economic implications for rural communities are profound and far-reaching. With John Deere transferring jobs to Mexico, the strain on local economies has intensified. Each layoff sends a ripple effect throughout these communities, impacting not only the workers directly, but also local businesses that rely on their patronage. When manufacturing jobs disappear, rural areas often struggle to replace them, leading to increased unemployment, reduced income, and economic hardship for entire communities. For example, John Deere's decision to lay off more than 2,100 workers in Iowa and Illinois has already devastated countless families. These job losses have forced people to reconsider their futures, and for some, leaving the community may be the only viable option. This migration of skilled workers away from rural areas further weakens the local economy, leading to an overall decline in economic vitality. In regions where John Deere has been a pillar of the community, the impact of these job losses is felt deeply, affecting schools, local businesses, and public services that depend on a stable population and workforce. Beyond layoffs, John Deere's repair restrictions are also hitting rural economies hard. Small, independent repair shops, which once provided a livelihood for skilled mechanics, are struggling to stay afloat as farmers are compelled to turn to authorized John Deere dealers. With fewer options for repairs, the rural workforce that once supported the agricultural sector is shrinking. This reliance on authorized services not only drives up costs for farmers, but also reduces job opportunities within rural communities, leading to a further economic decline. This situation paints a bleak picture for the future of rural America. As smaller farms and independent repair shops continue to struggle, some worry that John Deere's practices are contributing to the consolidation of agriculture, where only large corporations can afford to stay in business. This consolidation threatens the diversity of food production and undermines the self-sufficiency of rural communities. While John Deere enjoys record profits, the communities that helped build the company face an uncertain future, with economic stability slipping further out of reach. Record profits amid worker layoffs. John Deere's financial success and the simultaneous layoff of thousands of workers have sparked outrage among employees, the United Auto Workers, UAW, and critics alike. In 2023, John Deere announced record profits, boasting over $10 billion, a whopping 42% increase from the previous year. Yet, despite this immense profitability, Deere has continued with layoffs, removing more than 1,500 workers in Iowa and Illinois alone. For employees, this contrast is bitter. While the company celebrates its financial growth, workers face the harsh reality of lost jobs and uncertainty about their future. The UAW has been vocal about the perceived injustice, accusing John Deere of prioritizing shareholder profits over worker welfare. For many, this criticism cuts deep, as they see John Deere's actions as emblematic of corporate greed. The union has publicly condemned the layoffs, labeling them as a betrayal of the communities that have long supported Deere. Many union members argued that these layoffs aren't merely a result of market fluctuations, but rather a strategic choice by John Deere to cut costs at the expense of the working class. Further fueling the backlash is the contrast between the financial burdens placed on workers and the hefty compensation packages awarded to John Deere executives. CEO John May's compensation rose to an eye-popping $26.7 million in 2023, a stark increase from the previous year. This substantial pay raise at a time when the company is letting go of employees has led many to accuse John Deere's leadership of being out of touch with the needs and struggles of its workforce. Critics argue that this focus on executive wealth over worker security demonstrates a lack of regard for the company's foundational values and raises ethical questions about the balance between profits and corporate responsibility. Where's the investment in workers? John Deere's financial strategy hasn't been limited to executive bonuses. It's also heavily involved in stock buybacks, a move that stirred up additional controversy. Over the past 2 decades, John Deere has bought back more than $43 billion worth of its own stock. In 2023 alone, the company spent over $7.2 billion on repurchasing shares, a strategy that benefits shareholders by increasing the value of their investments. For shareholders, this might seem like a smart financial maneuver, but for workers and critics, these buybacks are a glaring example of how the company prioritizes short-term gains for investors over long-term investments in its workforce. Rather than using its profits to improve worker conditions, invest in communities, or make essential repairs more affordable for farmers, John Deere has chosen to funnel billions into shareholder gains. This strategy has sparked a heated debate, with critics accusing the company of neglecting its responsibility to the communities and employees who have played a crucial role in its success. For many, it feels like John Deere is turning its back on the workers and farmers who helped it become an agricultural powerhouse in favor of wealthy shareholders who often have little connection to the industry. The decision to focus on stock buybacks rather than reinvestment in the workforce has far-reaching consequences. When companies prioritize shareholder profits over reinvestment in their people, they risk undermining employee morale, reducing job security, and ultimately destabilizing the workforce. In the case of John Deere, this approach has led to a noticeable disconnect between leadership and employees. Union representatives and critics alike argue that Deere's approach risks creating a fragile company culture, where workers feel undervalued and communities bear the brunt of corporate decisions aimed at maximizing stock prices. This pattern raises serious questions about the sustainability of a business model that places profit above people. The future of farming and technological dependence. As technology continues to transform agriculture, John Deere's role in the industry is shifting. Today's tractors and farming equipment are no longer simple mechanical tools. They're highly advanced machines integrated with complex software and systems. John Deere has been a leader in this technological revolution, equipping its tractors with sophisticated GPS systems, automated steering, and even data analytics. While these advancements offer exciting potential for increased productivity, they also create new challenges, particularly for small-scale farmers who may not have the resources or expertise to keep up with the pace of innovation. The increased reliance on digital technology in farming has raised important questions about accessibility, affordability, and control. For farmers who have relied on traditional methods for generations, adapting to these digital systems can be challenging. John Deere's software locks further complicate this transition by making it difficult for farmers to service and maintain their equipment independently. As tractors become less about hands-on mechanical skill and more about software management, farmers are finding themselves at the mercy of complex systems they cannot easily access or repair. Critics argue that this approach could widen the gap between large agribusinesses and smaller family farms. For large corporations, upgrading to the latest technology is a manageable expense, but for small and mid-sized farmers, the high costs of new tech and repair restrictions can be prohibitively expensive. This divide has led some to worry about the long-term effects on farming diversity and accessibility. If only large farms can afford the latest John Deere models and repairs, small farms may struggle to compete, potentially leading to further industry consolidation and a loss of independent farming operations. This trend toward consolidation has implications that reach beyond farming. Independent repair shops, long relied upon in rural communities, are finding it harder to survive as farmers turn to authorized John Deere dealers for repairs. This shift not only drives up repair costs, but also threatens the livelihood of local mechanics who have traditionally supported the agricultural sector. The disappearance of these independent repair shops represents a broader erosion of rural self-sufficiency, leaving small towns with fewer employment opportunities and economic resilience. Clean Air Act concerns and repair restrictions. Beyond the economic and social ramifications, John Deere's repair restrictions are raising serious environmental concerns. Senator Elizabeth Warren has been among the vocal critics, questioning whether these policies might actually violate the Clean Air Act. According to Warren, the limitations on independent repairs make it difficult for farmers to conduct timely maintenance on emission systems, potentially leading to unaddressed emissions problems that could worsen air quality. These accusations add an unexpected twist to the controversy, suggesting that Deere's restrictive practices might not just hurt farmers financially, but could also have larger consequences for the environment. And for many, Warren's comments underscore a troubling trend: corporations prioritizing profits over environmental responsibility. Farmers who once maintained their equipment with ease are now struggling to keep emissions in check due to the barriers Deere has set in place. Equipment maintenance, when delayed, can lead to inefficient operation and increase fuel consumption, adding to the environmental burden. Many farmers have argued that if Deere truly cared about sustainability, it would prioritize accessible, affordable repairs to ensure that machines run efficiently and with minimal emissions. The environmental aspect of the repair debate has struck a chord with a broad range of stakeholders, including environmental advocacy groups who see this as part of a larger issue. They argue that when companies limit repair access, they discourage the regular maintenance necessary to keep equipment operating efficiently. This viewpoint aligns with the principles behind the right to repair movement, which advocates not only for economic and social reasons, but also for sustainability. Deere's resistance to these calls for change has fueled a sense of urgency within the movement, adding pressure for legislative action. Potential risks of tariffs on Deere products. As John Deere faces mounting criticism domestically, its reliance on global production could bring even more challenges. Former President Donald Trump's proposed 200% tariff on John Deere products made in Mexico threatens to make Deere's equipment unaffordable for many American farmers. With some models already priced around $100,000, a tariff could drive prices up to $300,000, creating a crisis for farmers who rely on Deere for essential machinery. While the tariff threat is aimed at pressuring John Deere to keep jobs in the United States, critics argue that it might backfire, placing an undue burden on American farmers. Billionaire entrepreneur Mark Cuban has warned that imposing such high tariffs could open the door for foreign competitors, making it easier for them to capture a larger market share. According to Cuban, this strategy risks pricing American farmers out of the very equipment they need, while simultaneously weakening Deere's competitive position in the global market. Industry experts agree that tariffs could have a profound impact on the U.S. agricultural sector, particularly for small to mid-sized farms already operating on thin profit margins. If foreign companies step in to provide more affordable alternatives, John Deere might face a serious challenge to its market dominance. While Trump's tariff proposal remains speculative, it has introduced an additional layer of complexity for Deere, as the company tries to balance its profitability with public and political expectations. Deere's future may hinge on its ability to adapt to these pressures without alienating its core customer base. A turning point for corporate accountability. The controversies surrounding John Deere's labor practices, repair restrictions, and international production decisions aren't just a reflection of one company's policies. They represent a broader debate over corporate accountability in the modern era. As American manufacturing faces new challenges, questions about how corporations balance profit with responsibility have become increasingly urgent. John Deere's recent moves have led many to question the very principles that guide American business, particularly when it comes to industries that serve the public good, like agriculture. For years, John Deere was seen as a symbol of American farming, representing a commitment to quality and community. But today, Deere's decisions appear to prioritize shareholders over the workers, farmers, and communities that have historically relied on the company. This disconnect between corporate leadership and the people they serve has raised ethical concerns that go beyond agriculture. Many see Deere's actions as part of a troubling trend in which companies focus on immediate profits rather than long-term sustainability, local employment, and customer satisfaction. The current backlash is also a reminder of the power of collective action. Farmers, workers, and community members are rallying together, pushing for the right to repair, protection of American jobs, and fair pricing. These demands are rooted in a shared belief that corporations should serve their communities, not just their shareholders. The momentum behind the right to repair movement, the calls for legislative change, and the growing skepticism toward corporate monopolies all signal a shift in public attitudes. Deere's situation is being watched closely by other industries, and it could set a precedent for how companies approach their responsibilities to customers, employees, and the public. As John Deere navigates this critical moment, the stakes couldn't be higher. The company faces an uncertain future, caught between profitability and a growing demand for accountability. The decisions Deere makes in the coming months could shape not only its own path, but also set a standard for corporate practices in American agriculture and beyond. Will John Deere address the calls for reform, or will it continue down a path that many see as prioritizing profit over people? Only time will tell. But one thing is clear, the controversies surrounding John Deere have sparked a conversation that extends far beyond tractors and farming equipment. This is about the very essence of corporate responsibility and whether companies like John Deere will rise to the challenge of serving their communities while still achieving financial success. Thank you for watching. If you found this breakdown insightful, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon. Together, let's stay informed about the stories that impact our industries, communities, and the future of American agriculture.